Not far from Potswilly, in another part of the Phlegrean fields, is the beautiful and unsettling Solfatara, the best-known volcanic crater in the Phlegrean area. The volcano has been dormant for at least 2,000 years, but its characteristic phenomena are still visible today. There are few places where one has the clear impression of the phrase, "fire in the belly of the earth." Tradition has it that giants were chained here after being defeated in a bitter fight with almighty Jupiter. The Phlegrean fields, according to this ancient myth, are unstable because of the agitated, convulsive movements of these giants. Another area related to myths about the underworld is the nearby Lake of Averno. The door to Hades was said to be found on its shores, blanketed in ancient times with a thick forest. According to Virgil, the Sibyl's Cave was also here, where both Aeneas and Ulysses went to begin their journeys into the underworld. The Magna Graecia was a home to people who not only loved literature and art, music and poetry, architecture and drama, but who appreciated the lush landscape, the open seas, and the tantalizing mythology that came with the territory. For gods and goddesses, and sailors and warriors who came home from the sea, Magna Graecia was almost heaven on earth, an enchanting land, combining a nobility that was all Greece on a palette of exceptional beauty. The Mediterranean Sea, 4th century BC. In every era, people of different ethnic groups have migrated in search of new land to lay the foundations of new civilizations. Sicily, a fertile and welcoming island, was the site of massive migration. The Phoenicians were the first to set up trading posts here that later grew into cities. However, they only considered the island a convenient landing place. Starting from the 8th century BC, the island that was so inviting and rich with water and pastures attracted the attention of another people, the Greeks, who emigrated there in great numbers. In a few centuries, there were such large colonies on the island that Sicily had a larger population than Greece itself. Archaeological excavations in Sicily revealed cities with more temples than were ever seen in Greece. Come with us as we explore the dramatic history of the largest island in the Mediterranean Sea. Greek historian Herodotus wrote that Greece had a faithful friend in poverty. It's a strange thing to say about a land that was considered glorious, proud, undefeatable, elegant, and cultured. Yet, that's how things were. Many Greeks earned their livelihood through trade, others with fine crafts. But the dry, stony, barren, and infertile Greek soil produced very little. From the 8th century BC, the Greeks started emigrating, mostly to the west, toward Italy and Sicily, a very fertile land, and in an ideal position for trade, since it was in the middle of the Mediterranean sea lanes. While excavating on Sicily, archaeologists realized that around the middle of the 4th century BC, many cities expanded into new quarters, often far from the coast. They found numerous buildings in the interior of the countryside. What was the cause of this population explosion and shift in locations? By consulting ancient historical texts, especially those written by Plutarch, scholars came across a very important event. In 339 BC, the Greek colonies on Sicily defeated the Phoenician colonies in the west in a memorable war at Himera. They thereby laid the foundations of their supremacy on the island and beseeched their homeland for strong men to thoroughly colonize Sicily. One of the puzzles that has long been debated among archaeologists is the nature of the first Greek colonies on Sicily. Were the first settlers, the pioneers who came to Sicily, peaceful explorers who lived in harmony with the local inhabitants, the so-called Sicanians, or did they forcefully take control of the best land on the island? According to the accounts of ancient historians, the Greeks were belligerent people, unlike the Phoenicians who also settled on the island, although only for trade purposes. Greek settlers were described as being intent on owning arable land. While the Phoenicians built emporiums along the coast and were not interested in the interior, the Greeks tended to expand and take military control over vast areas. Ortygia is a small island adjacent to Sicily, and the first settlement of what would become the largest Sicilian colony of ancient times, Syracuse. Excavations under the present-day cathedral there, which incorporated the Greek temple of Athena, led to the discovery of an ancient indigenous colony that was supplanted in the 8th century BC by a Greek colony. Archaeologists were able to pinpoint the date after studying the type of pottery they found. Studies revealed that Greek settlers had driven out the native Sicanian peoples, conquered the city of Syracuse, and expanded beyond Ortygia into the mainland. The building boom the Greeks initiated may be found to this day in the still existing quarries that the Greeks later used to lock up prisoners of war. But people weren't constantly at war on Sicily. There were long, peaceful periods during which Greek settlers exchanged products and compared their artwork with Phoenician settlers and the Sicanians, thereby keeping the island humming with prolific cultural exchange. Syracuse, in the 4th century BC, was an enormous city with mighty fortresses and numerous monuments that were elegantly decorated. Among the most famous pieces is a Gorgon mask and the Venus Landolina. Across the canal on the mainland was the second part of the city, a city that had become the largest and most important in Sicily. Excavating here, in what is presumed to be the more recent quarters of the city, archaeologists came across a theater. Strange inscriptions engraved in stone appeared at various points. Translators soon realized that all those graffiti had something in common. They were names of gods and famous kings. But what was the relationship between them? Systematic excavation of the theater and reliefs revealed a strange symmetry between the points in which the inscriptions were found, which led them to unravel the mystery. The names had been engraved to distinguish the theater's various sections and seating arrangements. It was here that the premiere of one of the most representative dramas of Greek culture, The Persians by Aeschylus, was held. The play is about the great victory of the Greek city-states, united for once, over the militarily strong Persians, whom the Greeks defined as barbaric and lacking culture. The premiere at Syracuse meant that Sicily had become, over time, an integral part of Greece. After all, Aeschylus, like Archimedes, was a Siciliot, a Sicilian Greek, and spent most of his life at this theater. The theater symbolized the presence of Greeks on Sicily. The Phoenicians were primarily devoted to trade and spent little time on literature, and the Romans, who arrived later, preferred the oval-shaped amphitheater where they could watch gladiators in action. Perhaps the world's highest concentration of ancient Greek theaters is on Sicily, where culture was associated with wealth. This one, at Tindari, opens toward the sky and gives us a sense of how the Greeks attempted to create dramatic visual impact to intensify the pathos of their tragedies. One of the most spectacular Greek theaters on Sicily is undoubtedly the one at Taormina, dug into a promontory overhanging the sea. This one at Catania, at the foot of Mount Etna on the east coast of Sicily, is like a gem perfectly inserted into the city landscape. On the other side of the island was Agrigento, and along the way was a noted latifundium, a great landed estate with a magnificent home, almost a palace, and a rest stop, a so-called Filosofiana Statio. This place for centuries existed only in the pages of an antique guidebook called the Itinerarium Antonini, but eventually it started revealing traces of itself. In the 50s, archaeologists systematically began excavating the ruins 40 miles from Catania in the vicinity of Piazza Armerina. They came across a real treasure, the Villa del Casale, an